Okay, welcome everyone to Cartographer office hours and community meeting. So today we are, briefly discussing a question from Cora about the intention to, or the proposal to rename some of the cartographer resources and see if that's in progress. What's the current status of that proposal?
Sorry, I'm just popping open our notes. Have you got a link to it handy?
Yeah. Sorry, I will.
Awfully disorganized today.
Right there. There you go. Yeah, by the way, we're moving meeting notes to HackMD. It's part of a larger effort on simplifying meetings and trying to better design the content for it. You will see more on that later on. I will add Cora's question to today's agenda.
Yeah, what's your question exactly, Cora?
Sort of like how far away that whole change is to move from using like the whole renaming resources. And I guess maybe it's a two-part question. Like, is there a model already worked out? Do we know that it's a blueprint and blah blah blah, and also how far away that is, how far away the change is?
So the team has been developing in the direction that there's probably going to be some move in that direction. There's been a sprint for our 040 release, which is about ready. So we haven't thought much about it lately. I mean, I think we all would like something like that. And so I think it's a reasonable question that you ask, and having some sort of timeline on that would be helpful. There's a few proposals flying around too that might inform the decision to standardize on the blueprint. So the idea in general is that the blueprint, that the supply chain and the delivery that we have today are very similar objects. And for whatever differences they have, those differences can easily be encapsulated in a singular concept called a blueprint. That's why we use the word blueprint in our docs. And there's another proposal that's out there that we care about for snippets. I think it's been described as the Snippets Rfc, which is the idea that a few people have been asking and saying, you know, there's pieces of a supply chain that we kind of always want to use, and we want to use repeatedly in multiple supply chains. How can we get that kind of reuse without having to just copy past the YAML all the time? And so the concept also includes the idea that a blueprint itself also represents, it's meta. It can also be a template. It has an output type. So that's where the idea is going. Even if we do land on something concrete, which I hope we do in the next sprint is part of our design process, there will have to be migrations, and will have to be discussions about, you know, the broader term, the broader changes that will, and impacts that will have on our users for sure. And it'll certainly be brought up as a proper RFC before it gets, there is a blueprint RFC there, but I think people have gone away to think about it a little bit. So that hasn't been pushed along yet. So maybe it's something we can make sure that at the next more attended meeting, we actually have a discussion about. I think that would be, I think now is just the poor attendance is in reflection of the fact that we're all pushing to get a release out at the moment.
Cool, thank you.
Well, I hope you get better answers in the next one.
Yeah, no, I mean, even that helps. Like, it's not imminent.
No.
Yeah, okay, because it just makes, from like my personal concern is just like, as I talk about it, or as I put out material, is it going to change in like 2 weeks, and then am I better off waiting? But it sounds like no. Okay, cool. Thank you.
And we appreciate the material that you put out. So, you know,
I appreciate the technology that you put out.
Yeah, so don't stop. But we're just, you know, there is some reimagining, and you know, as we've worked the product up from its early phases, we're starting to see real like cementing or gelling around certain ideas and concepts. Yeah. So we want to be just, I was the one who pushed for that RFC to start, so that we would start having the discussions. All right. Because folks were like, well, we can't do that right now. We've got so much else going on. I'm like, absolutely. But I think everyone should be aware of what we're thinking, because just want it to be a great product. And of course, there's going to be a huge migration issue there, a real pain in that respect. So certainly something we want to make sure that we care about, and that the RFC includes how we're going to do CRD migrations, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Raj. Right, let me share my screen real quick here. Yeah, so feel free to add your name there. If your affiliation is with VMware, you just need to add your name just to save you time. If your affiliation is with TerraSky, also please add it there. Cool. So what's new in the project? Yeah, I think Raj already summarized that work on the new release, the .4 release.
Well, I
Is
could
there any
probably,
over?
yeah, I could probably go into a little bit more depth for those who are here, because a couple of things have landed. I think it's worth knowing. There's a bug fix, and it will change behavior, but only in the sense that the behavior probably was not working properly. That is around Runnable. Runnable was not reporting status correctly, and it would happily copy forward an output if it was present, even if the Tecton task had only just started. So if you were taking an input, say from the spec, that would have just been copied forward. And so you would have found that your, especially if you're running like a Tecton source test, you would find that was running in parallel with your following step, which probably be a build. So it wasn't really gating anything. That should be, it's dependent on Tecton finishing with succeeded equals true now, and that's important. So you have to, the Tecton task now has to succeed at equal true for that value to copy forward. The status of the object is still inaccurate. That's an ongoing bug. I'm hoping to fix that before 040 is finalized, but it may not make it. But at least the important part of that, which is that the gating would work with Tecton. Runnable's not supposed to be Tecton specific, but it is at the moment, because that's as far as we've gotten. So that's just something to be aware of. It's based on the concept that there's a condition succeeded. So I think that's important to know that that's landing. There's been a lot of efforts to develop internally. There's been a lot of efforts to develop a PR workflow. I'm not sure where that will land, but I'm hoping we'll have some examples of PRs soon in the open source as well. I mean, obviously people can roll it themselves, but I'd love to get those examples in. So that's some work that we've been learning about. So I'm hoping that will land soon, to make pull requests instead of just doing git pushes. So I'm hoping that will land in open source at some point soon. But at least there's knowledge that we've built up around that. Let's see what else might have landed. Oh, and the health status work is mostly done. There's still the multi-match for that. I'm not sure that that's landed yet, but most of the health status work is done. That was Sam has done that.
Has the event work started yet?
No,
Rash?
it has not, Scott. No.
No. Okay.
No. I meant to be on that by now, but you know how life is.
Exactly.
It's next on the list though, for sure, but it probably will not be making it to 040. Actually, it won't be. So I'll be categorical about that. I won't make it an 040.
Cool.
It's not even hard work. It's yeah. I think there's a little bit of a
prioritization, exactly.
Yeah, and I think there's just a little bit of an effort internally too to think about how we've been doing testing, but without the rest of the team here, I don't want to go much into that, except that I would like to pick up some of the testing practices that we see in the convention control, the
convention controller.
Yeah, and cartographer conventions, and yeah, some simpler testing based around stubbing API requests instead of using the env test approach from controller runtime. But I have to ratify that. But I would like to see some of that happen so that I can write these tests in an easier way, one that's less async and a little easier to test. So that's the main thing I'm trying to make happen before I actually implement the events. But after that, it should land pretty quickly. Definitely be in the next version, I think, unless something drastic changes.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, the PR workflow is going to be great. I've built those myself using Tecton, but it'll be great to have some official examples out there.
Yeah, I really hope that we find some time to prioritize generating an actual controller for that approach. Obviously, it's not Cartographer's problem, so to speak, but I just think that it would really strengthen Cartographer's stance if we have a controller that's good at that, because I don't think there's one in the market. Otherwise, we'd be using it today. All right.
There isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's very like job specific ones, right? So like you have Flux has the image reflector, which when it recognizes a new tag in an image registry creates a PR to update the image tag in a manifest. But that's like very specific to only that. It's not for full anything you want PRs.
Yeah. Yeah. A controller that accepted some source and a specification that we'd like to make a PR against a certain repo would be super useful, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of writing a bunch of bash code with some Git commands in there and making it very specific to a Git provider, because there is no PR API for Git. There's a special one for GitLab and for GitHub and for Bitbucket, and for GitHub Enterprise has a different API than GitHub itself. And yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that doesn't help either, does it?
That's, I think, the biggest issue here is that, you know, it's so specific to the Git infrastructure you're working against. Right. Bitbucket Cloud has a different API than Bitbucket Enterprise for on-premise. GitHub Enterprise is easy. It's just a different API prefix.
Right.
But even that needs to be parameterized then in what are you using, right? So then the supply chain needs to have more and more parameters getting added in to tell it which one, so it knows which loop to use.
Well, my thought on that was to try and work out if all of those things have some you know, false starts. You hit an endpoint, no, it's not there. Okay, so it's not GitHub Enterprise, right? Hit another endpoint, oh, it's clearly it's you know, it's Bitbucket, you know.
Right.
You know, so that it's
I wish they all just had like a
parameterized.
health Z that told you what they were.
Yeah. And a standard PR API would be really useful at this point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, because the PR API, there's examples on like Tecton Hub of doing things with, you know, GitHub PRs, but nothing around any other Git provider.
Right. It's got to be generalized for anyone to really want to absorb it as a supply chain component, right?
Exactly. I mean, one of the things I was talking with Stephen about before was the idea that I think that, you know, what would be so amazing down the road for Cartographer, talking about these examples, is actually taking that idea of Tecton Hub that exists, right, and creating something like that of Cartographer.
Absolutely.
Of having a way for getting a library up there where you have the verified ones from the Tecton community, from Tecton, and then you also have community-based ones that anyone just creates a PR that's auto-merged if it's, you know, passes linting tests, basically.
So the first thing I would do, I mean, I already feel that there needs to be a community hub on the site. But the first thing I would do is I'd raise an issue for that on the Cartographer site. And also I don't think any of us would resist a first draft PR to see, you know, to add something like that, because there's no reason we can't host it using Hugo at the moment. So
right.
I don't disagree. I think that's the thing that we need to do, and I think it needs to help us drive. This goes into what my discussion topic is for this meeting. So perhaps if you all don't mind, I'd jump onto that.
Yeah.
I've got a link there for hacking on front matter. And this is some markdown hackmd that I did. Now this is not editable because this is my space for thinking about this stuff, but by all means add comments or have a shot at this yourself. But I feel like I feel like when you walk into the Cartographer website, you don't really understand what we do. I've got friends and family who are software engineers, perfectly capable, and they go, I still don't know what it is you're working on. And I go, that's fair enough. I think it's the current front matter is not great. And so what I tried to do was something a little like Carvel's front page. And you know, a few of these places have got like 3 big tiles that just try to generalize what it is the product is and use a big icon for it. So so the 3 principles that I came up with here, I think one of them, I think they all lead to it, but I think mostly that composability, controllers do the heavy lifting, means that we need a place to talk about what controllers already exist that we recommend people use, that we've got examples of being used, because I think we you know, we are dependent on the idea that the ecosystem will grow with controllers that are suitable for supply chains. It can't just be the core team, because we haven't got a hope of generating that many controllers in the world, right? We definitely want to see it happening in the broader community. And so one example being a controller for PRs is, I think, incredibly valuable, and the time is ripe for that. But yeah, so I guess my point is that if people agree with a lot of what I'm saying here, and you may not, I feel like that is exactly the right direction to go, is that there's a hub for finding controllers. More important than examples of how to use them is to know that those controllers exist, and you know you can pick them up and quickly purpose them using a simple template, right? That's the dream. A simple template will quickly let you absorb a controller that's great for supply chains. That's the intention. But I'd really like it if y'all could comment on this and see if this would have got you square on the ideas behind Cartographer a little quicker than.
Rash, just let me understand what you're saying. So if I go to cartographer.sh right now,
Mm-hmm.
it has the 3 tile view where the first tile is, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Reusable CI/CD, separation of concerns. And so you're saying that the launch point, like are you suggesting basically changing this page and trying to make it something where people land and they more quickly can absorb what Cartographer does?
Was thinking about the wording being more precise. I don't know. I think more as you go down the page, there's reusable. Okay, so I'm sorry, but guess what? I haven't looked at the landing page in a while. I still feel that I don't know. I might need to be. I might need to take a step back and think about this again. I still feel like when I look at this page, I don't know what it is that it does, and most people who come along are thinking in terms of, well, I'm using Tecton or Jenkins or Concourse, or I'm using some kind of like I guess there's 2 entry points to this world. There is I've heard great marketing about this supply chain choreography thing, and I want to know why it's beneficial, or I've heard about this and I think it is beneficial, but like, how would it differ from what I could do in Tecton today? All right. So yes, some kind of reworking of these 3 tiles and then the explanations that follow. We've also got a new tech writer, so hopefully we'll be able to get some help from them as well. Sorry, you're going to say, David?
Oh, no problem. Yeah, one of the most frequent questions we receive is, how is this different to Tecton chains or whatever? So yeah, and we are also running an exercise with users to try to. We will be running this exercise to try to gather feedback, structured feedback on what's needed for the website, because yeah, as Raj mentioned, it's common to hear that at first read here, it doesn't make really clear what is cartographer, what is not, and how it's different, how is it is different to other tools.
Yeah,
So
looking
yeah,
at it,
this
sorry,
yeah, no
I'm
problem,
very
go ahead.
chatty. Looking at it, I feel like jumping off to examples is also be very useful, right? Very quickly showing how our structure gives you, as per my document, how it gives you convention over configuration. I don't even think that's very well sold at the first. Like, it's a big offering. The developer only has to write the shortest bit of YAML on the planet to go through path production. It's the Heroku push experience, right? But instead of Heroku, you've got your ops teams managing whatever the supply chain is that actually gets you to prod. So I think, just there, right? First thing we should say is, versus all of this YAML to describe what your application looks like, here's a workload, and that's why this is better, right? And then, composability controllers do the heavy lifting. Why? Because this stuff is now one place to do RBAC, one place to do to define your supply chains that matches the same principles you use for your productionized environments. So if you know RBAC for running your K8s resources, then you know RBAC for managing Cartographer, right? Those sorts of skills are then translatable. I don't know how you do an example for that. That one's a little less like immediate. I don't know. That's where I'm going, and I'd love some feedback on getting this stuff a little squarer and straighter with users.
I think one of the points that could be driven more is also just like, I feel like sometimes when we talk about what Cartographer does, the things that it does are not necessarily things that enterprises aren't doing. Like they could be, like an enterprise could have DIY'd a pretty fancy supply chain or CI/CD process and be exposing to their developers also a very minimal entry point. But what this does is it says, that whole thing that you had to DIY until now, it's kind of like when we transitioned, even into Cloud Foundry, it was like, yeah, you have a platform, you're running your web servers, but you don't have to do this manually anymore. And it's not just that we're automating it, but we're actually offering a better way to do it so that it is intrinsically more simpler, more elegant, and more maintainable. And it's built on this next generation of technologies, right? So this is not just automating your supply chain or finding a way to sort of like save companies from DIYing something, but it's actually, it is doing that, but it's doing it based on this leap forward that Kubernetes offers, where now suddenly everything is running on Kubernetes. Everything is, top to bottom, leveraging those things. Kubernetes becomes this common operating system. So the lifecycle management is delegated to this common layer, and really you're picking and choosing, best of breed ecosystem point solutions for any particular part of your process. And we're giving you this ability to integrate all of those. And that elegance and power is what can replace this DIY thing, kind of like thing that you've been wielding all this time. So in a way, like, while it is valuable, of course, to talk about the things that it can do, I feel like a lot of companies have achieved some of those outcomes to what they consider a, sometimes you don't realize you need more until you see more as possible, but they've achieved those outcomes to a certain point that they're operational. But the cost of maintaining that and having built that and just keeping that alive and onboarding applications into that and trying to change that when necessary, the rigidity of it, and the burden that it is to maintain, that is what we're alleviating in a way, right? Even if they're to replace it with something that achieves similar sort of practical outcomes, right? You're still going to test, you're still going to build.
So for me, what that brings up is that we need to be able to, because again, this needs to be punchy, right?
Mhm.
And so what we need there, what comes up for me is we need to draw a bead on replace your snowflakes, right? Replace your snowflakes with evolving industry standards. And then that was where Cartographer as a project runs aground a little, because Cartographer as a project at the moment pretty much represents the platform authoring platform, not the platform itself. Whereas maybe like TCE is an example of a platform that is authored, right, and is flexible, would be where you can say, like, directly to an organization, here you already got some stuff rolled out that we've got some best practices for the industry that you can immediately roll out. All right. Whereas Cartographer is not suggesting that today. I'm not saying it shouldn't. I'm just saying at the moment it's really, we run aground with people who think that Cartographer is the CF push experience. They think when they grab Cartographer, what they're getting is pre-roll platform, right? And they're like, wait, Cartographer is not that, and no, supply chains are that, and people can write their own. Cartographer enables that, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that I want to make sure that we actually help people with that, because I hit that too often with users who are expecting Cartographer itself to solve the platform problem. What we want to do is be a part of the core or the backbone component that lets people solve those things.
Yeah, and I mean, having a community repository would help bridge the gap a little bit.
Yeah. So I love the idea of having a page up for that, a hub as per Tecton, right? I think that would be incredibly valuable. First thing we can do is point to Cartographer catalog, which I hope is now public.
It is. The
Okay.
one from TCE, it is.
Yeah. It took a while, but we should actually mention that in the notes. That Cartographer catalog is now open and available, so you've got a working example. Except I can't seem to find it.
I'll try and find
Yeah,
that.
it's here.
I have so much trouble with typing on a laptop keyboard.
Let me put it here.
Yes, I mean, that should be on that page, right? I know we have a resources page, but I think this is a different thing, David, right? I think there is this idea of like specifically components that you can immediately use, examples or tested supply chains, great controllers that you might want to pick up, Tecton tasks that are immediately reusable with, you know, we could even categorize them that thusly. Be good to have.
Yeah, I definitely think so. It's things like I had built originally like in integration with Argo workflows, just to show like the pluggability over that it doesn't need to be Tecton, right? Just even having that, like a simple example of running a hello world test, you know, like the simple Tecton tasks that are used, is a way of validating to the community of that this is pluggable, right? Like we know it's pluggable. It was built in a pluggable way, but where do we have more options, right? There's nothing really except for Flux that does what Flux source controller does. But for other parts, there are other controllers that could be implemented that are definitely beneficial to show that type of an integration. And it could even be just cluster source templates, or someone could upload a supply chain with all of the templates themselves. Right, but it could be all types of resources that could just be out there for people to be able to really take a look at.
Absolutely.
I'm silenced. I didn't realize. Is it enough today that if we created a page like that, we just mention at the top of it, we put an edit link and say, and it just creates a PR for adding
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Speaking of which, there's a bug on that. We need to fix that on our docs side as well. But yeah, we should add people can contribute their own links, right?
Exactly. And I think that it can be at the beginning, like for just to like start getting it, it could be just links that people put in a link into the docs to some other GitHub repo. And down the road, when this starts to grow, hopefully, and there's more examples, then something like a Tecton Hub, which has, the whole, layout, and you can view the YAML there, and there's a README for each one, and it's all integrated. That can all be done later down. But even just having a resources page where you have links to examples that exist elsewhere. It also removes any burden of testing or anything like that from the Cartographer team, or any responsibility of this stopped working because there was a change and it wasn't updated with the new version of Cartographer or whatever. It's not hosted under the Cartographer org. It's just linked to under like community resources. And then that takes away some level of, I don't know.
We need some distinction from this resources, right? Which is, these are learning resources, I guess, that we have today. And what we're really talking about is technology resources that you can apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I think we need a story for this. Who would like to write a brief issue about this?
I can create a issue for this.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Should it be on the Cartographer site repo?
Yes, please. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter which one it lands on, but it's better if it's there, then we know what it relates to.
Exactly.
Our project board spans all of them. The GitHub, the new GitHub projects are quite neat in their ability to view across multiple repos.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is Cartographer conventions also brought in?
I'm not sure if I'm not sure if we've added it to that project board yet, but it certainly should be.
I'm not aware either, but it definitely should be.
Yeah, I'll try and remember to do that. I don't have a note card. I'm not well equipped for cafe work.
Oh, yeah, I will put it in the notes also. All right. Yeah, next will be to review outstanding RFCs. I don't know if we should do this right away. I don't think so, right?
I think it's worth skipping at this point. I think if there's anything to
Yeah.
discuss on RFCs, unless Cora or Scott feel particularly inclined, I'd like to see a much bigger turnout for the next time we discuss RFCs.
I don't have anything.
Yeah, nothing from my side.
I mean, clearly there's a lot of interest in the blueprints one, and
Yeah.
I don't know how to allay any anxiety it might be causing other people, Cora. Hopefully they pick up on the notes from this meeting if there anyone's concerned.
Yeah, feel free to check out the RFC board, and add comments if you need. Cool. Okay. Yeah, next up will be the contributor of the month. Remember, this is something we do at the beginning of every month to try to recognize every type of contributions from users out there. This time we have Maylarch. She not only sent a PR back in February to improve one of the examples, the Git writer examples to be specific. But besides that, she's been creating demos and helping spread the word about the project, explaining and demoing the project out there to users and customers in the field. So we're really grateful to you, May, and we hope you enjoy your swag. Make sure that you arrive on time. So she's our content contributor of the month. Thank you.
Cool.
Oh, cool. All right. Seems like that's it in terms of the agenda. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss or share here? Nope. All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Thanks for your time and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for all the info.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. All right.